Erased Destiny. Chapter 1. The Coward. With a bandage immobilizing her right hand, Marigold sat on the bank of the stream. Her injury was so bad that she did not feel like going anywhere. Abella resented Marigold for not explaining in details reasons behind the unpleasant incident, and Marigold tried to avoid her mother whenever possible. Abella feared that Marigold had gotten to a fight with the boys from the neighborhood. That would be terrible for her reputation. Marigold's limited mobility saved her dresses from further damage, and for that Abella was grateful to fate. She was tired from sewing Marigold's clothes again and again. Abella wondered who Marigold had inherited her character from, as her looks were definitely from her father. Even the moles on their faces were in the same places. As usual, dressed in black, Jargon knocked on the door of Marigold's house. Rose opened. At first, she was frightened that it was some kind of vampire and screamed, but when she recognized her neighbor, she smiled, fluttering her blonde curls in the process. Jargon thought something had gotten into Rose's hair and started combing through it with his fingers, which intensified the screams.
Marigold is out.
How does she feel?
I think she's fine. I don't know what it's like with broken fingers because I've never broken anything. Will you give her a bucket? She forgot today it's her turn to bring the water.
Jargon turned even paler. He had broken Marigold's fingers. He hoped that the girl's injury had healed already, that Marigold had forgotten the unpleasant incident. Only after fetching water did Jargon go in search of his friend. He spotted her from a distance, sitting alone on a large boulder. She was fishing, and next to her laid an empty basket.
The fish are not biting.
As you can see.
How are you feeling?
Fine. My hand doesn't hurt anymore.
Jargon sat down next to Marigold, but she didn't move. She did not continue the conversation. Marigold held the fishing rod in her left hand and rested her right hand, wrapped in a bandage, on her thigh.
I'm sorry I hit you. Can I help you? With fishing.
You could have helped me, but you didn't.
I said I am sorry. Why didn't you tell your parents the truth?
Marigold snorted. She never accused anyone, even if it was her who got hurt, or it was her who was suspected by the adults.
Go home, coward. Unless you mature. Then we can talk.
Jargon got up and wordlessly walked back to the village. He stood by the fence of Marigold's house. He searched for the right words to describe what had happened, to make it look like an accident.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's about Marigold.
She's not at home. Isn't that your teacher?
Angry with himself, the boy turned towards the road. A retired warrior Torden was riding on a gray horse towards the merchant's estate.
I'll stop by later.
Of course. Marigold is always happy to see you.
Abella's smile indicated that she was glad to see the young heir as well. In her mind, the woman was already preparing the wedding of the two. Jargon ran through the grove. He was afraid of being reprimanded for being late. Putting on his pads, he took his aggrieved friend out of his thoughts for a moment.
We'll start with sparring. Show me what we have been training recently.
Jargon hardly remembered his last lesson because of Marigold. He thought that perhaps it was about a horizontal cut from a half twist and attacked. It was only after the warrior parried the blow that he remembered that the last lesson was about holding the guard. He adopted the correct stance and waited for the attack.
I like teaching the adepts of magic. One never knows what to expect from you.
Forgive me. Please don't tell my parents.
Jargon calmed his breathing and asked the lawn to return to its place.
Parents don't like magic. I'm not allowed to cast any spells.
In a few years, you will decide for yourself. I'm not saying that being a mage is the most appropriate occupation, but knowing magic helps survive in a battle. I think you're not in the mood today.
Quite the opposite. Hence the anomalies.
Every spell casted by Jargon, his parents called an anomaly, a magical phenomenon that should not exist. Their older children showed no talent for magic, only Jargon. And although the boy caused no destruction, he was accused for everything that was difficult to explain, even winter storms.
Training helps to deal with emotions. Sometimes you have to run, climb some mountain, swim across a lake to calm yourself down. I do that myself.
They practiced guarding, dodging, and counterattacking until Jargon slumped on the trampled grass. He didn't have the strength to move, and most importantly, he didn't have the strength to think. He stared at the clouds gliding above him and counted the beats of his heart. From his vantage point on the lawn, he watched his teacher ride away. He was grateful to him for the opportunity to release the tension, and for the lack of prying.
Young master should not be lying on the grass. Young master will get sick.
If I was to get sick from anything, it would be from the excess of your care.
He got up from the ground and made his way to the stable. He saddled his horse. His parents allowed him to ride around the estate only and only when accompanied by an adult. They had bought a small pony especially for him, which Jargon, even as a 10-year-old, could easily temper. He led the horse outside the gate.
Young master must not leave the house.
Then lock me in a cage. It won't change anything in my life.
He galloped towards the town. He wanted to do something, anything, to make up to Marigold for what had happened. The wind gave him a joy that was hard to describe. He realized that for the first time he had openly defied his parents. He felt free and happy, although anxiety prevailed in the latter sensation. Jargon was afraid of his parents' reaction. He slowed down to think about what would make Marigold feel better. He checked the contents of the leather pouch. Few coins, much too few to buy anything fancy. Despite their wealth, Jargon's parents avoided giving any money to their son, as if they were afraid of him running out from home. Ride between his home and Sintra was too short for Jargon to decide what he was looking for. Before he reached town's gate, Jargon heard a tumult behind him. He looked back and stopped his horse. The sight of the huge black stallion froze Jargon's heart. His father rushed after him.
What are you doing?
I am going shopping.
If you need anything, you could have told us. Why did you run away?
Dad, please. Sometimes I need to do something myself.
They looked at each other for a moment. The cool stubbornness in Jargon's eyes surprised Cyril enough to get off his horse and lead him to the stables. Jargon did the same and noticed, for the first time, that horse care was not for free. It costed 2 coppers.
All right. Where shall I take you?
Actually, I'm going to the market.
The market works only in the morning. They've rolled up those stalls of theirs long time ago. Shall we come shopping tomorrow or look for that something in the shops?
Sudden support startled Jargon so much that he became silent. With his mind's eyes, he saw Marigold in a nice new dress. Something that had not been created from the fragments of outfits that were already too small.
What do you want to buy? Just in general. So that I know what shop to take you to.
Actually, a dress.
I see. To the tailor then. Come on.
Cyril and Jargon walked down a stone street, wooden houses with walls full of color. surprised Jargon enough to make him walk twice as slow as his father. Jargon rarely visited Sintra, mostly because he rarely left his house in general. Therefore, he tried to see as much as possible to remember every small detail he has noticed. Sintra's architecture fascinated him much more than local woods or fields. The sun hid behind the roofs of buildings. By the time the men reached the tailor, the sky was already covered in red and gold. Cyril felt unusual. At first, he was angry with Jargon, then irritated because of Jargon's slow pace of walking. They had no chance to buy anything after sunset. But after a while, Cyril calmed down. He thought that it would be even better if they don't make it in time. He could discuss the matter with Joanna first, understand better Jargon's motives. Cyril pushed the doors closed. He looked through window, knocked few times, and pretended to be very disappointed.
Too late. Well, nothing to do now, we'll be back tomorrow. Come on.
Isn't there another tailor in the town?
Why? Are you going to the dance tonight and Marigold has nothing to wear? We'll arrive early in the morning.
They returned to the horses and rode along the road in the light of falling dusk, passing by carriages and workers returning home after a long day of work. Jargon felt only distaste. He had failed to buy a present for Marigold. They would lock him up again. He dreamt of freedom, of no prohibitions or orders, of no care, protection, or supervision.
You are even quieter than usual. Is something wrong?
No, Dad.
I heard that Marigold broke her arm. Apparently someone has assaulted her. What a dishonor. To attack young girls.
Nobody assaulted her. It was an accident. I didn't mean to.
How many times has Jargon justified himself in this way? Each time he said he didn't mean to, his father squinted his eyes. He didn't like listening to his son's excuses, but he realized that they had raised him this way themselves, punishing him for the slightest offenses. It was their fault that Jargon couldn't behave properly.
Why didn't Marigold say it was you who had hit her?
I don't know. She stopped talking to me.
With last sentence, Jargon almost started to cry. He became silent again, to regain control over his own emotions. Cyril looked at fields they had been passing. He got lost in thoughts. Could he really fix Jargon's attitude? He had almost no influence on his son. Cyril bit his lips. If only Jargon was at least a bit similar to Gabriel.
You should talk to her parents. And after that give her a present.
Can this be solved? Remotely? With a letter?
They stopped in the front of the house. The lights in the windows showed that no one had gone to bed yet. Cyril pondered his son's words. A letter? He wasn't sure Raglan could read, Marigold even less so, but Abella probably could. Why the letter? Cyril looked at Jargon. He saw a small, frightened animal, not a brave young man. Cyril took a pipe from his pocket. Jargon lived a safe life, with no dangers, and probably would not meet the end as soon as his older brother. But was this really a better choice?
You have to take responsibility for what you've done. I'll go with you to Marigold's house, if it helps you.
I have said already, it wasn't my fault. An accident. Marigold hit herself with my sword. She attacked me. I didn't even move.
Cyril puffed at his pipe. He nodded, and in order not to prolong the discussion, he said,
Tomorrow I will go to Sintra, buy some gift for Marigold and deliver it to her house. I will apologize to her parents and hopefully Marigold forgive you. You need to remember that girls are not as resilient as boys. Next time be more careful.
Sure thing, Dad. Never again teaching Marigold swordsmanship.
Jargon was happy that the problem would be solved without his involvement. He counted on his father, his tact and communication skills. A letter from Jargon could only do harm, so he hasn't write a word. Believing in his father, Jargon went to bed.